It's late. I just got off work. Rain's coming down in that slow, sticky way that makes neon lights bleed into puddles. You know that feeling when the world looks like a music video, that surreal feeling. Out-of-body experience. Yeah, that's me most nights. And for some reason, every time it rains, I think about Reze. Not because of the love story, not even because she died. It's something else. Something that still feels unfinished. Like there's a piece of her story nobody talks about. When the movie ended, people left the theater. I didn't. I just sat there, watching the credits roll, wondering, what happens after you fall in love with the person who tried to kill you? And more importantly, what happens when you survive it? Denji survived Reze, but it didn't feel like a victory. He didn't walk away stronger. He walked away emptier. MAPPA didn't need to show it. You could feel it in the way he stopped talking, the way he looked at people but didn't really see them anymore. People talked about the explosions, the rain, the underwater scene, but no one talked about what came after, that weird calm that creeps in once everything's over. Because Reze didn't just blow up buildings, she blew up whatever innocence Denji had left. Think about it. This guy spent his whole life chasing something simple: food, touch, warmth. Then, out of nowhere, this girl shows up. She laughs at his dumb jokes. She gives him a nickname. She makes him feel human for the first time. And then she turns out to be a Soviet assassin with a bomb in her heart. That's not love. That's emotional terrorism. And the craziest part? Even after she tried to kill him, he still wanted to run away with her. People love to call Denji stupid for that, but I think that's the most human thing about him. Because when you've never been loved, you don't care if it's real. You just don't want it to stop. That's the part of Chainsaw Man nobody warns you about. You come for the devils, the gore, the chaos, and you end up getting hit by the loneliness. Reze wasn't just a villain. She was the first person who treated Denji like a person, even if it was a lie. And maybe that's why she haunts him. Because in a world full of control and manipulation, she was the only lie that felt honest. It's funny, every fan remembers how she died, but almost no one talks about how she lived. How she hesitated before pulling the trigger. How she looked scared when she smiled. How you could tell she wanted out. That's what I think about. The small moments. The way her voice softened around Denji. Like she was tired of being a weapon, just like he was tired of being a pet. Two people from different sides of hell, trying for a second to act like they belonged in heaven. So yeah, every time it rains, I think about Reze, because some stories don't end when the credits roll. They linger, quietly, invisibly, like a memory that refuses to die. And for Denji, that's the real curse, not the devils, not MAPPA. It's that somewhere deep down, a part of him is still standing in that rain, waiting for Reze to turn around. After Reze was gone, Denji didn't say a word. He didn't talk about it, didn't ask questions, didn't even mention her name. He just showed up the next morning like nothing happened, killed another devil, ate whatever was in front of him, smiled when someone told him to. And you'd think that means he didn't care, right? But that's not what it means. It means he's broken in a way most people never notice. See, Denji doesn't know what grief looks like. No one ever gave him space to feel it. He lost everything before he ever had anything. His father's debt, his dog, his childhood. People like that, they don't process pain, they bury it. Because if they stopped to feel every loss, they'd never move again. But here's where it gets dark, and kind of fascinating. After Reze, Denji doesn't just lose a person. He loses a version of himself. The one that believed he could have something normal. A girlfriend, a laugh, a morning that didn't end in blood. When Reze died, that version of Denji died with her. And this is where Fujimoto's storytelling gets brutally honest. Because Denji doesn't realize he's mourning. He thinks he's just tired. He mistakes trauma for boredom. He starts chasing noise. Food, TV, Makima's attention, anything that drowns out the quiet. Sound familiar? That's what most people do today. You lose something, someone, some dream. And instead of grieving, you scroll. You distract yourself until the pain gets small enough to ignore. Denji's no different. He's just doing it with devils instead of dopamine. But what's wild is how obvious it becomes if you re-watch his scenes after Reze. He's quieter, his reactions are delayed, like he's always somewhere else. He doesn't even flinch at the kind of death that used to scare him. It's not bravery, it's emotional frostbite. There's a detail most fans miss. In one of the panels right after the Reze arc, Denji's eating food alone. He's holding the bread with both hands, just staring at it. No energy, no expression, like he forgot what hunger feels like. That's not an action shot, that's a portrait of depression. And that's what makes him terrifyingly human, because he doesn't even realize he's depressed. He thinks this is just what life is supposed to be. Working, eating, killing, sleeping. And honestly, that's the scariest part. If you've ever been stuck in that loop, 9 to 5, same streets, same people, same phone glow, you start to understand Denji. You stop chasing happiness. You just want peace. But the truth is that numbness isn't peace. It's grief wearing a mask. And here's where it gets controversial. People say Denji's obsession with Makima is all lust, but I don't buy it. It's grief, disguised as worship. He's not attracted to her power, he's addicted to her attention. Makima doesn't love him. She studies him, tests him, pushes him. And Denji mistakes that control for care because he's never had the real thing. He confuses being used with being needed. That's not stupidity. That's trauma. And it's the same thing Reze understood too well. She saw the cracks in him, the loneliness, the hunger to be seen, because she had them too. That's why she hesitated before killing him. That's why she smiled that last time. She saw herself in him, and that's what scared her most. But for Denji, that moment broke everything. He learned that love isn't safe, that warmth can be a setup, that the next person who smiles at him might have a knife behind their back. And from that point on, he stopped trusting anything that feels good. Because in his world, happiness always explodes. So when you look at Denji after Reze, he's not a hero anymore. He's a ghost in his own story, alive but not really living, breathing but barely aware of why. And that's what makes Chainsaw Man hit so hard. Because somewhere deep down, you realize Denji isn't just fighting devils, he's fighting the fear of feeling again. You ever feel like you're just existing? Not living, not dying, just existing. Wake up, work, eat, scroll, sleep. That's Denji after Reze. And honestly, that's me too. After the whole chaos of the Reze arc, the explosions, the fights, the betrayal, the next part of Denji's story goes quiet. Too quiet. He starts doing all the things people call normal. Breakfast with power, missions with Aki, TV shows, bread, routines. But if you really watch him, he's not living. He's imitating living. It's like he's rehearsing what happiness is supposed to look like, without actually feeling any of it. That hit me hard because that's exactly what most of us are doing. We post our lives online, talk about goals, relationships, health, but half the time we're just going through motions, hoping something clicks. We crave connection, but scroll past it. We say we want peace, but chase noise. Denji does the same thing. He's surrounded by people, but he's never really with them. The quiet is unbearable, so he fills it with whatever he can find. Fights, blood, food, attention. Anything to distract him from the echo Reze left behind. I relate to that. I grew up in an environment where everyone was competing. Grades, looks, success, followers, everything. You couldn't just be yourself. You had to be better. And somewhere along the line, a part of my heart just stopped trying. Because when you're always compared to someone else, you start living for survival instead of joy. You stop asking, what makes me happy? And start asking, what makes me enough? Denji's trapped in that same system. Not social media, but the same idea. He's being compared, watched, controlled. Makima treats him like a pet. Society calls him a weapon. Even Reze only saw him as a target, until she didn't. And for that brief moment when she looked at him like a person, he believed he could finally be enough. That's why her absence feels like an open wound. Because she wasn't just a girl. She was the proof that he could be human. And when she was gone, that proof went with her. Now he's numb. He goes through each day with that dead look in his eyes, the same way I see people on the train, scrolling through feeds that don't mean anything, faces half lit by screens. Everyone's chasing distractions because no one wants to sit alone with their thoughts anymore. That's why Denji's so relatable. He doesn't want to feel alone, but he's terrified of feeling anything at all. There's a scene right after Reze dies where Denji just sits at the table, eating bread. No music, no dialogue, just him and silence. People skip over that scene, but it's probably the realest moment in the series. That's not an action scene. It's what depression looks like in anime form. The camera doesn't move because neither does he. What's crazy is how accurate Fujimoto makes it. Denji doesn't realize he's broken. He thinks he's fine. That's how grief works when you've been through too much. You stop crying. You stop hoping. You just exist. And people call that strength, but it's not strength. It's damage. I feel that. When you've grown up in a world that's constantly testing you, you start building armor without even realizing it. You start thinking you need to earn kindness. You start believing that love is conditional, a transaction for being useful. And someday you wake up and realize you don't even know how to receive love anymore. That's Denji. He's forgotten what being human feels like. He calls it peace, but it's not peace. It's paralysis. And this is where it gets darkly ironic. Denji's living the normal life he always dreamed of. He has a home, friends, 3 meals a day. He should be happy, but he's empty. Because what he really wanted wasn't a normal life. He wanted a reason to live one, someone to share it with. That's what Reze was. Not a fantasy, a reason. And once you've had that, you can't go back to pretending. I think that's why her ghost feels so real. Because it's not about her dying. It's about everything she awakened in him that could never die. She represents that tiny, innocent part of Denji that still believes in something pure. And sometimes I wish I still had that too. I used to believe the world was fair, that if you worked hard and were kind, things would work out. But the older I get, the more I see how cruel it can be. The world chews up good people and calls it reality. And yet, watching Denji still trust people, still hope for something better, it makes me envy him. Because even after everything, he has that spark left, that childlike belief that maybe, somewhere, there's someone who'll actually see him. That's why I can't hate him for being naive. Because deep down, I wish I still had the innocence he has. To love without strategy, to trust without fear, to look at someone and not immediately calculate how they might hurt you. That's what makes Reze's memory so painful. She reminds us of what we lost along the way. That version of ourselves that still believed in good endings. So when Denji sits in that rain, staring at nothing, he's not just mourning Reze. He's mourning the boy he was before he met her. The boy who still believed he could be happy. And that's why her ghost never leaves him. Or us. Because she's the last proof that even in a world built on blood and fear, there was once something gentle worth fighting for. Section 4. MAPPA, Power, and the Shadow of Reze. After Reze, Denji is a shell of himself with his emptiness that can't be filled. And in that emptiness, 2 people take center stage, MAPPA and Power. One promises control, the other gives chaos. And somewhere between the two, Denji tries to figure out what love is supposed to feel like. MAPPA isn't just another character. She's a gravitational pull. Every time Denji gets too far from her, she reels him back in. She talks softly, moves slowly, never raises her voice. But every word she says feels like a command wrapped in affection. It's seductive, not in a romantic way, but in the way power always seduces weakness. And I'll be honest, I understand why Denji can't resist her. When you grow up without warmth, authority feels like safety. You mistake control for care. I've done that too. My mother was distant when I was growing up. Not cruel, just unreachable. She was always working, always tired, always somewhere else. And when you grow up like that, you start craving strength, the kind that feels like protection. You look for someone who can make the world make sense again. MAPPA represents that for Denji. That illusion of security. That quiet voice saying, "You don't have to think. Just trust me." It's intoxicating. Because when you've spent your whole life surviving on your own, surrender feels like relief. That's why Denji obeys her. He doesn't love MAPPA the way he loved Reze. He depends on her. She's the mother he never had. The god he can't disappoint, the promise that if he's good enough, maybe he won't be left behind again. And that's what makes it tragic. She knows it. She uses it. Every compliment is a leash. Every touch is a test. And Denji can't tell the difference, because no one ever taught him what real love feels like. I relate to that more than I'd like to admit. When I'm weak, when life starts to crush me, I look for someone stronger to lean on, someone who feels unshakable. It's not even romantic, it's survival. You tell yourself you're safe because they're calm. You mistake their power for peace, and then one day you realize you've handed over every part of yourself just to feel cared for. That's Denji with Makima. He worships her, but what he's really worshipping is control, the fantasy of being taken care of. And in a way, it's not his fault. That's the kind of love most people settle for when they've never been loved the right way. Then there's Reze. And she's everything Makima isn't. Where Makima manipulates through power, Reze connects through presence. She doesn't need to control Denji. She just sees him, listens to him, laughs with him. She's not testing him, not grooming him. She's curious about him. And that's what makes her so dangerous, not to Denji, but to Makima's world. Because Reze isn't a god, she's human. And that's what Denji's been missing all along. When I first watched their scenes, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, that warmth of being truly understood. You know, that rare kind of friend who doesn't need you to explain yourself? Who just gets it? That's what Reze was for Denji, and I felt that. I remember the first time I met someone who really listened, not waiting to respond, not judging, just being there. It felt like my brain exhaled for the first time, like, oh, this is what it's like to be seen. That's what Reze did for Denji. She appreciated his presence, not his power. She treated him like a person, not a project. And that kind of love, even if it only lasts a few days, changes you forever. That's why her death hurts more than any of the others, because Reze wasn't just another heartbreak. She was proof that Denji could still be human, that underneath all the violence, there was something in him worth loving. So when she's gone, the world doesn't just lose Reze, it loses Denji's hope. And the tragedy is, he doesn't even notice it happening. He just keeps moving forward, holding on to Makima's promise because it's all he has left. But deep down, the ghost of Reze keeps whispering in his head, reminding him that once, for a brief moment, he was more than a weapon. He was someone's favorite person to talk to. Love isn't a lesson you learn once. It's something that breaks you, reshapes you, then breaks you again. That's what Reze did to Denji. She didn't arrive to comfort him. She arrived to remind him that even monsters can crave warmth. People think of her as the bomb girl, the assassin, the spy from a foreign country. But beneath that title, Reze was someone who finally treated Denji like he was worth talking to. She didn't look at him with pity or fear. She spoke to him like he mattered. And that was more dangerous than any weapon she carried. When you've spent your entire life being used, even a little kindness feels suspicious. Denji kept waiting for the punchline, yet every moment with Reze disarmed him a bit more until he forgot to protect himself. That's the part no one warns you about. When someone reaches into the parts of you you thought were dead, you don't know whether to thank them or run. Reze taught Denji what it means to be seen, and that's terrifying. Because once you've been seen, you can never go back to pretending you're invisible. What makes their story brutal isn't the betrayal, it's how sincere it felt before it fell apart. Even if her mission began as manipulation, something changed along the way. There's a flicker in her eyes near the end, like she's realizing she's tired of being a weapon. Denji reminded her what she'd lost, the ability to feel something that wasn't an order. That's what love does to people who've only ever known survival. It exposes them. It makes you want to risk everything for a few honest seconds. That's why Reze hesitated. That's why Denji can't forget her. Because somewhere in all the lies, something real happened, and neither of them knew what to do with it. Fujimoto hides this truth in plain sight. Love and violence are made of the same energy. They both demand surrender. They both make you vulnerable. Denji never feared devils. He feared feeling again, and Reze forced him to feel. She pulled humanity out of him with a smile and a spark. After her, he could never go back to being numb. I think about that a lot, how the first person who truly understands you doesn't always stay. Sometimes they exist to show you a version of yourself you forgot was possible. Then they disappear, and you spend years chasing that same feeling through other people, other distractions. That's what Denji does with Makima. That's what many of us do with our ghosts. For me, I remember the first friend who really listened. No judgment, no competition, no need to perform. They saw me when I felt invisible. And when that friendship faded, I didn't miss the conversations. I missed the peace they gave me. That calm Reze gave Denji when she sat across from him and actually looked him in the eyes. That's why Reze matters, because she isn't about romance, she's about recognition. She reminded Denji that he was still capable of love, that he still had something human inside him. And once you know that, you can never pretend otherwise. The cruel part is that her death turns that realization into a curse. He can't forget her because she's the proof that kindness can exist, even in a world built on control. She's the echo of everything pure that gets crushed the moment it appears. When Reze asked Denji if he wanted to run away with her, it wasn't a fantasy, it was a test. For 1 second, he had freedom in front of him, within reach, and he couldn't take it. Not because he didn't want it, but because he didn't believe he deserved it. That's how deep Makima's control ran, and that's how deeply trauma rewires the brain. You start mistaking pain for belonging. Reze exposed that. She showed him that real love doesn't demand obedience, it offers choice. And choice terrifies people who've lived their whole lives being told what to do. She's the first and last person who ever gave Denji a real decision, and he failed it. That failure becomes his origin story, because from that point on, everything he does is an attempt to fill the void she left. That's what she taught him about love, that it's fragile, fleeting, and impossible to control, that it doesn't save you, it changes you. And if you're lucky, even when it ends, a piece of it stays, as a reminder that you were alive once, and that being human was worth the pain. Fujimoto doesn't write about heroes. He writes about survivors, people too broken to be noble, too aware to be innocent, and too human to be saved. And the older I get, the more I understand why his stories hit differently. They aren't just about devils and blood. They're about what happens after the chaos ends, when the adrenaline fades and you're left alone with what you've done to survive. In Fujimoto's world, love isn't gentle. It's messy, desperate, sometimes cruel. It's the kind of love that bleeds and burns and leaves a mark. Because to him, love and violence come from the same place, that urge to connect, to be seen, to prove you exist. And when people are denied connection for too long, they start expressing love through destruction. That's Denji, that's Makima, that's even Reze. They're all trying to connect, but the only language they know is pain. Fujimoto once said in an interview that he doesn't believe in clean emotions. He said real love always involves contradiction, kindness mixed with selfishness, devotion mixed with control. That's why every time Denji reaches for someone, the story explodes. Because in Chainsaw Man, love is the most dangerous thing you can feel. It's ironic, the Chainsaw Devil's power is to erase names from existence, but Denji's real power is the opposite. He remembers. No matter how much pain he goes through, no matter how many people he loses, he carries them with him. That's why he's human. Because memory, even when it hurts, keeps you alive. Reze, Makima, Power. They're not just characters. They're memories that refuse to die. Denji might forget their faces in time, but their presence shapes everything he becomes. Every decision he makes is a reaction to them. Every ounce of numbness, every flicker of hope. It all traces back to those memories. That's where Fujimoto's genius lies. He doesn't let his characters heal neatly. He lets them live with their scars. Because healing, in his world, doesn't mean erasing pain. It means learning to carry it without letting it kill you. And that hits close to home for me. Because I used to think the goal was to get rid of pain, to move on, to forget, to be okay. But that's not how life works. You don't erase what breaks you. You absorb it. It becomes part of your identity, whether you like it or not. It shapes how you love, how you trust, how you see the world. Sometimes I catch myself doing the same thing Denji does, replaying old memories like I'm trying to rewrite them. What if I had said something different? What if I had left earlier? What if I hadn't trusted that person? But memory doesn't change. It just waits, quietly, patiently, until you learn to live with it. That's the salvation part. Because Fujimoto isn't saying pain makes you good, he's saying it makes you real. In a world obsessed with fake perfection, social media smiles, curated lives, emotional armor, Denji's pain feels honest. He's not pretending anymore. He's bleeding in public and still walking forward. And in that mess, there's something pure. That's why I think Chainsaw Man resonates so much. It's not about fighting devils, it's about fighting the part of yourself that stops believing in love. The part that says, it's safer not to care. Because once you give up on caring, you start disappearing in slow motion. Fujimoto makes you look at that and ask yourself, what keeps you human? For Denji, it's memory. The fact that he can still remember Reze's smile, even after losing everything, means he hasn't turned into a devil. He still hurts, which means he still feels. And that's his quiet rebellion against Makima's control, against the world's cruelty. He refuses to forget. That's what Fujimoto believes in. Not happy endings, not clean closure, but the stubbornness to keep remembering the things that made you human, even when it hurts. Because in the end, pain is proof that you once loved something enough to lose it. Some characters disappear when their story ends. Reze didn't. She lingered, not as a memory, but as a feeling that sticks to you long after the credits roll. Even now, whenever it rains, people online say things like, "This feels like a Reze day." And I get it, because I feel it too. Reze isn't popular because she's beautiful. She's unforgettable because she feels real. There's a kind of sadness in her smile that makes you wonder if she even believes in happiness herself. That's what makes her magnetic. You can't tell whether she's saving Denji or warning him, and that uncertainty makes her human. In a way, she represents something we all go through, that one person who enters your life, flips it upside down, and then leaves before you can understand what happened. They don't stay long enough to ruin you, but long enough to make the world look different afterward. That's what Reze is. She's that almost. The almost love, the almost freedom, the almost future that never happened, and those are the ones that haunt you the longest. When you think about it, Reze doesn't even have that much screen time. A few chapters, a handful of scenes. But it's not about quantity, it's about impact. In those few moments, she changed everything. She humanized a boy who didn't know he was allowed to be human, and then she died, taking that version of him with her. Maybe that's why she feels bigger than the story she came from, because she represents something we've all lost in our own ways. That one person who showed us a softer version of ourselves, the one we didn't think could exist anymore, the one who made the world feel lighter, and when they left, that version of us went with them. When I look back at my own life, there are people like that too. They weren't lovers, some were friends, some were almost friends, but they left fingerprints that never faded. Even now, I catch myself thinking about them during the quiet moments, not because I want them back, but because a part of me still lives in who I was when they were around. I think that's what Reze represents for Denji, not unfinished romance, but unfinished growth, the version of himself that believed he could still be good before the world reminded him how cruel it was. There's another reason she stays in people's minds, because she broke the pattern. Up until then, every woman in Denji's life either controlled him, feared him, or ignored him. Reze did none of that. She treated him like a boy, not a weapon. She laughed with him, not at him. She gave him choice, and that's the most dangerous gift of all in Fujimoto's world. And maybe that's why her death feels so unfair. Because it wasn't a punishment, it was a warning. A reminder that in a world built on power and fear, tenderness is always a threat. Makima could control Denji's heart, but Reze moved it. And that difference is what made her dangerous. There's this rumor among fans that if Reze ever came back, the story would have to end differently, that Denji could never kill her again, that he'd run, and I think that rumor exists because people want closure that Fujimoto will never give. Because Reze isn't meant to return, she's meant to linger, to live rent-free in the space between what we want and what we can't have. In a sense, she's not dead. She's become a symbol. Every time Denji hesitates, every time he questions himself, every time he looks at someone with that same fragile hope, that's Reze living on through him. And that's the cruelest kind of immortality. Not through resurrection, but through memory. Fujimoto once said he likes to write about the kind of love that can't be fulfilled, the kind that ends before it begins, because that's the kind that feels most human. And he's right. We don't stay up at night thinking about the relationships that worked. We think about the ones that almost did, the ones that could have saved us if timing, fate, or fear had been different. That's why we still think about Reze, because she represents the hope that something better existed, even if it didn't last. And when life feels repetitive, when the world feels dull, she reminds us that one genuine connection can still make everything feel alive again, even if it destroys us. She's proof that you can meet someone for a moment, and that moment can echo forever. That's not romance, that's reality, and that's why, years later, people like me still sit here, watching the rain, listening to old soundtracks, and wondering if maybe, somewhere in another version of the story, Denji and Reze really did get to run away together. Because sometimes, believing they did is the only way to keep a little hope alive. Sometimes I think about how strange it is that a story about a boy with a chainsaw for a face can make me feel more human than most real stories ever did. Because at its core, Chainsaw Man isn't about devils or violence. It's about loneliness. It's about what people do when they want to be loved but don't know how to ask for it. Denji started as a kid who just wanted something simple: food, shelter, touch. And every time he got close to any of it, someone took it away. Makima promised love and gave him control. Power gave him friendship and then vanished. Reze gave him freedom and then died for it. One by one, they all showed him a different way to feel alive, and each one ended in loss. That's the curse of being human, isn't it? You reach for connection and it hurts. You build walls and it hurts differently. Either way, you pay a price. But Denji's story isn't tragic because he loses everyone. It's tragic because he remembers them. He carries them like ghosts that never stop whispering. And that's the part of him that refuses to die. The part that still hopes. Fujimoto could have written him as a monster who forgets. Instead, he wrote him as a survivor who remembers everything. Even when he tries to move on, Reze's presence follows him. In his silence, in the way he hesitates before trusting anyone new, in the way he still looks at the world like he's waiting for it to explode again. And that's what makes him feel so real, because we all carry those ghosts, the people who shaped us, hurt us, saved us, then disappeared. The conversations that ended halfway through. The text you never sent. The version of yourself that existed before the disappointment. Those things don't leave. They just get quieter, they fade into the background, but every now and then, they echo. Like hearing a familiar voice in a dream and waking up feeling both full and empty. That's why Reze never leaves Denji, or us, because she's not a villain or a saint or a plot twist. She's a reminder. That love, even when it fails, still matters. That connection, even when temporary, still leaves something behind. When I think about Reze now, I don't think about her death. I think about what she represents, that one spark of humanity that refuses to die, no matter how many times the world tries to snuff it out. And maybe that's the real message of Chainsaw Man, that the pain doesn't make you weak, it proves you were alive, that even if you've been used, betrayed, controlled, the fact that you can still feel anything at all means the world hasn't taken everything from you yet. Sometimes I still catch myself scrolling through life the way Denji does, trying to feel something real through all the noise. And every now and then, when it rains, I remember that scene. Denji waiting at the station, Reze running toward him, the story ending before they touch. It's not a happy ending, but it's an honest one, because that's what life usually is, unfinished. We don't get closure. We get memories, fragments, ghosts that follow us quietly into the next chapter. And if we're lucky, we learn how to carry them without letting them crush us. So maybe the point was never about saving Reze, or even saving Denji. Maybe the point was realizing that even broken people can still love, and that love, no matter how doomed, still matters. I think that's why I can't stop thinking about her. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. In a way, most people aren't. And somewhere deep down, I think Denji still believes she's out there, in some quiet corner of his mind, waiting for him under the rain. And maybe that's enough. Because as long as he remembers her, as long as we do, she never really dies. Maybe that's what Fujimoto wanted all along, to remind us that even in a world built on fear and violence, love still finds a way to exist. Not the perfect kind, not the kind that lasts forever, but the kind that leaves a mark, that shapes who we become afterward. Reze was never meant to stay. She was meant to show us what we could have been, before the world made us harder. And Denji, he's still chasing that version of himself. The one who believed a normal life was possible, the one who still looked up when it rained. Maybe we all are. Maybe that's why I can't stop thinking about her, because somewhere inside all of us, there's a part that still hopes that even after everything burns down, something gentle can still grow from the ashes. Thanks for watching. This was Lessons in Fiction, where we don't just talk about stories, we look for the pieces of ourselves hidden inside them.